Good morning. I don't think there's anything else to speak about except the tragedy in Israel. I was there in 2013 in the Southern Territories. I met the people in those kibbutzim. I sat at their tables, and they had a love for their Gazan neighbors. At that time, the kibbutz I was at predated the state of Israel. And look what happened to them. For all these years, since 1967, since Gaza became part of Israel, I guess since 1948 and beyond, but 67 when Gaza was formally annexed and when the West Bank communities from Jordan were annexed. The Gazans were mostly from Egypt. In all these years, as I was saying, where were institutions? The UN's been there. Didn't they know what was going on? Hamas has been the leader of the Gazan people. They were chosen by the Gazan people over and above the PLO. The Gazans get billions of dollars from foreign countries like Qatar and the Emirates. What do they do with the billions? They just seem to follow the Hamas mandate and say war and annihilation of the state of Israel. When I went in January of 2013, this was in solidarity for the southern towns. Those towns had been inundated with 10,000 rockets by Hamas. The rockets were about 4 or 5 feet long, filled with shrapnel. In those days, they weren't so dangerous. I was also at the only IDF headquarters in that region, a huge installation just keeping the peace. Recently, the Erez crossing into Israel has been opened, first under Lapid with 10,000 work permits for Palestinians, and under Bibi, 20,000 work permits. This was an operation in Gaza with Hamas that was long in the making and skilled. But the murder is the murder of people who have no care for human life whatsoever. It was just as ISIS has done, the beheadings of young children and babies and parents, the murder of youngsters going to a music concert. And it was just on the eve of Israel negotiating a peace settlement for the Abraham Accords. So far, those negotiations are on hold. If it were up to me, it would not be on hold. No, sir. Today, Saudi Arabia is talking to Iran, and they're talking about their fellow Palestinians, or, as I think of them, the Gazans. They're not all Palestinians, because that seems to be a catch-all word for a people. They're really Egyptians, a lot of them, mostly, and they pledge allegiance to the Muslim Brotherhood and to Hamas. And my thoughts are, you guys should all be speaking with Israel. Israel doesn't need to have a Dresden-style bombing. of Gaza, nor does Israel need to pursue any kind of door-to-door fighting within the Gaza Strip. Now, if you profess to love the Palestinians in Gaza, then take them. Take them to your country. Let them be safe in your country. Let them vote with fellow Arabs who they absolutely associate with and identify with. And let Israel have the Gaza Strip once and for all. It was conquered fairly. It belongs to Israel. And anyone who lives within Israel's territories must indeed pledge allegiance to Israelis. But what I'm suggesting says no more harm would come to innocents. So if you love them, you could have checkpoints out there with many nationalities, many different Arab nations standing by, identifying who you're taking in, which families, and take them in. Why should this be Israel's problem alone? And if it isn't Israel's problem alone, then why not talk to Israel? Continue the Abraham Accords and say in advance what you think you would do if you were in Israel's situation, so that you don't come out swinging afterwards and you condemn Israel for having protected themselves any way they know how with the least loss of Israeli lives possible. Hamas has managed at this point in time to destroy thousands of young people and families. Why they emptied out a nursing home and took the Philippine caregivers, I have no idea. I just pity the people. They also have hostages from at least 10 different nations. We already know Americans were slaughtered. We already know they've raped young women and paraded them through the streets. We already know that they've decapitated children's heads and paraded them through the streets, and they were cheered on. That's barbarism. This is a failed state. If all you can do with money from other countries is foment war and hatred, unfortunately, the prophetic words of Golda Meir are correct. When the Arabs learn to love their children more than they hate the Israelis and the Jewish people, then we'll have peace. Until then, no. But what is hatred? When you have hatred in your heart, you are digging two graves, one for yourself and one for the person you hate. There is no point. In the end, I believe most of the Hamas terrorists will be rounded up. Right now, Israel is even treating the wounded terrorists. Not in hospitals, because they'd be lynched, but they're treating them, and I hope that they give up a lot of information. Because if I had billions of dollars to support families that I was supposed to be governing, I wouldn't be developing a war machine. I would be developing schools, community centers, mosques, not to store weapons, but mosques for peace, so people can enjoy living and life. Death is nihilistic. It comes to all of us, but it doesn't have to come in such a brutal, barbaric, horrific way. And there is no justification for any of this. You don't like living in the Israeli state? Get out. And that's really my message. Don't be there. Go elsewhere. Even those who feel oppressed on the West Bank or the West Bank towns. You're Jordanians. If it were up to me, if you could live peacefully amongst the people of Israel, God bless. You can hold dual citizenship and vote in Jordan. And that seems logical to me, and a way to have a two-state solution that satisfies everyone. The Gazans go with all of the nations that support them. No more empty words. Now it's time to act, and act decisively. This has been going on for over 10 years, and Hamas was the one who also started the second intifada. Why does Israel have to live with the lies continuously? They want the total annihilation of the state. I think the Jewish people and the Israelis have suffered enough. This all reminds us of the pogroms in Europe that everyone escaped. The memories of what happened are going to traumatize a generation. It's enough. The wars have to stop. And the only people who can help stop them are Saudi Arabia, Iran, Qatar, the Emirates, and I can go on. Think about it. And if you think I'm right, then go and talk to your congressman, and go and write letters to the Arab consulates. They can stop this carnage in a nanosecond. Let them absorb the people of Gaza first, and then we can talk about the Western towns. Take care, everyone, and I hope you have a good day. I'm going to try, though you can see I'm crying as I'm speaking because this hurts me. My dad wanted to fight for the state of Israel after serving in World War II. I remember as a little girl, I was probably 4 or 5, when he was collecting guns for the state of Israel from all the war buddies and shipping them over. I've been to Israel 10 times. My first trip was for a bar mitzvah of my son with my entire family. It was magic. And I will say that I enjoyed immensely going to the Western Wall and walking the 13 stations of the church. I've done it many times, and I've introduced my grandchildren to it as well. It is a wondrous place where all of our religions intersect. Let's keep it peaceful and respect each other. God's blessings.